They want to make a movie about me.
Live and document our subject's physical and mental degradation.
I thought you said you were going to put on a good movie. What happened? After the last one you made me endure, it was the least you could do. You know, live up to
Well,
your
wholly
word.
of right there. I never promised you nothing, and I thought it was a good one. You even give it a chance.
Christmas, Barry. What did we just watch?
The story of Alzheimer's is never about one person.
Why? You really didn't like it? No, I thought it was pretty good. I really thought you might be into that one. Figured it's good enough at what you might like in a horror movie. Figured you were digging it.
Did I wrong you somehow? What could I have possibly done to you to deserve that? Why would you make me suffer through this?
Boy, you know what you did, and you know why I'm doing this. Maybe you just need to expand your horizons. You know, step outside the old comfort zone.
At the beginning, I thought I was interested in the beginning, at least with some modicum of curiosity. It might be intriguing, but I don't know, morbidly so.
Aye, but today we talking about a little film that could. The Taking of Deborah Logan.
Yes, another found footage abomination that you've made me watch. And the only one who got taken here was me before the proverbial ride. Not even Liam Neeson could have stopped it.
Yeah, sure, mate. Why not? Whatever you say. So, really, out with it. You're telling me that you didn't like it?
No, I didn't. Is that really so surprising? It's another one of your abominations, crudely made and pasted together. You can see the sketching, the scenes. It's awful.
They want to make a movie about me.
Yes.
Oh, this again. Come off it, mate. You just need to let that go. You can't keep bringing that up for everything. You need to stop backing that kind of thing up. It can't be a genre complaint.
Even on the day that you show me a good movie, a good found footage movie, I'm going to bring this up. But on that day, I'll say something like, despite this film being found footage, it defies my expectations. In spite of its choices, it will not be good because it is found footage. That day is not today. We have
As you will, mate. I picked this one because I thought it had a chance. Thought it made good use of the found footage style. Really leaned into the strengths of it. It had an engaging promise. You know, that reason for why they were documenting everything. The reason we're seeing. The reason we get to see any of this happening at all.
We'll live and document our subject's physical and mental degradation.
Yes, the framework of the narrative, the framing device, it did have a little more going for it than the usual
good.
tripe.
I'm not interested in being exploited.
It's just unfortunate that the subject matter it's so damn depressing. Watching the first 10, 20 minutes or so of this movie, I was ready to go for the bottle.
It's a little close to home, does it? Yeah, real somber stuff, I agree. Bit of a downer.
This is not normal sleepwalking. You should come see this. It's not good, Doc.
Which is why I'm a bit torn on how quickly things start to get out of hand. Like you said, no one probably wouldn't want to spend an hour or so documenting the mental and physical decline of an elderly person caught in the grips of a debilitating disease.
Always been a regret of mine.
You went to Germany?
And I say that even though it's exactly what I wanted out of this.
Destroys the patient, but has a physiological influence on the primary caregiver.
Of course you did. I am all for the train wreck which we arrived at instead of that slow, plodding, and perhaps meandering story that would have surely followed from your premise of what the movie might have been.
Have, a senior moment.
Since she left the stove on.
For the life of me, I won't sit through another movie that is just 90 minutes of wandering around to have something happen in the last 5 or 10 minutes. I will take a train wreck if it means I can avoid that slow jaunt through the woods.
Sure, you stick with it. Or just keep going and introduce the film, since you did a right awful job the last time I asked it of you.
My PhD thesis film posits that this insidious disease.
The narrative is framed as a medical student's doctorate thesis. We are watching the events unfold through the lens of Mia.
My legs are numb. Oh, this is a nice house.
And had 2 cameramen, Gavin and Lois, as they document the progression and effects of her disease on an elderly woman, the titular Deborah Logan.
Told you about?
Nice to meet
You know, they're here for the pre-interview.
They want to make a movie about me.
And the effects caring for her has on her daughter, Sarah.
You spoke to me on the phone earlier. Oh,
I'll just
hi.
hug. I'm glad you're here.
Do you feel as though we may infer how much characterization a character will receive by the amount of name they have? As in, if they have no name, we know not to even bother caring. But once they receive a given name, you believe they might be better or worse characterized than someone with an additional name, a surname.
Gavin and Louis.
Hi. Okay.
Almost like ignore these guys. For all purposes.
Ignore us.
A bit off topic, mate. I might say no name is a bit harder than someone with a name, but there's no concrete way to say yes to that. Typically, yes, but you get exceptions like Norda from They Live.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The man with no name from A Fistful of Dollars.
You see, that's what I want to talk to you about.
And before you can ramble off some kind of response to that, a film crew begins to uncover evidence that not always what it seems to be. There could be more happening than a simple medical diagnosis might explain. Sinister forces at work.
Oh, don't give me that. Your premise, this unique and interesting idea that you seem to think the film is responsible for, is abandoned almost immediately.
You're gonna want to see this. Bam. Whoa.
All that care, all that grounding, shattered by one single event as far as I'm concerned, and I'm all for it. All aboard a ride on the crazy train, bypass reality and into the weird and baffling. I'm looking at this movie more as a trip to the circus, a carnival freak show, kind of like that last one.
Look, I'm with you when a certain respect I sort of abandon the idea in a hurry, but I'm not for any of that. Not in the way you are. Fuck me dead. I wish they didn't. They move away from that mundane, that banal, as you might say, the depressing subject matter of the in-universe reason for why Maya is filming at all.
Becomes most apparent is there are no small tasks for an Alzheimer's patient.
All my little puzzles. I do my crosswords. I'm lifting weights.
How do you fight your way through something you can't see or know?
There's no cure.
They transition into this fantastic, the otherworldly, and it's a shame. I didn't watch the trailer, so I can't blame them for my expectations. But they were shattered, and that downright hurts me the most. With Frankenstein's army, I knew what that was going to be from the jump. I don't even know how this was marketed, so it's all on me for my expectations, but...
You didn't watch the trailer and you don't know how it was marketed. How did you even find out about this
I
movie?
may have seen it mentioned a few months ago. Figured I'd give it a watch, chuck it on, see if I missed anything. Really thought it was going to go well with my little thesis.
My PhD I'm gonna start again.
But that's just the way things are. I was really looking forward to what I felt the promise might have promised, that it could deliver on these expectations.
Let me guess. Was it the promise of the slow, methodical investigation which...
Bang on, mate. I say exactly what I was hoping for. Wanted something slow. They slower than what we got. Keep it grounded, believable. The whole intrigue or suspense of whether or not anything is happening as they document what's going on with their subject.
Do you ever feel like you're a child? You just want to hide underneath the sheets on your bed as you listen to the sound of the wind. You think it's a ghost wailing or a wolf howling. Those bumps and creaks you're hearing of the house shifting and settling as if something is creeping along in the depths of the night. That seems to be what you want. The magic of childhood. That which you can't recapture. That whole idea of you can never go home.
You know, May, I've not a clue what you're going off about. I just want something a bit more believable. Something with a little bit of substance, something behind the scares. The plausible deniability that something could be happening. You know, when things do happen, the rationalists, the skeptics, they could feasibly try to explain away this happening in a way that you might think is believable, that has some merit. It's not baffling or an outright denial as to what is occurring. It's beyond the rational or logical and just can't be explained.
Deborah?
Well, the film said, screw that noise, and throws all of that careful plotting and all that subtlety right out the window. And I'm all for it. Abandon all that tripe and trifling nonsense. What we have here is a full-speed, head-on collision with absurdity. And the ending. It all really comes to a head for me near the end. There is just one moment where all of it comes together. It had me staring in disbelief. I wanted to laugh, but I had been stunned into silence.
Okay, Mom, here I come.
And I'm right sure I know the exact moment you mean. It's one of those things that, well, it's shocking. But if someone involved in the production was going to horror, then...
Probably a moment they envisioned in their head is terrifying, but the execution falls short. It's nothing short of ridiculous. That moment alone, saying it may not have made the movie, but I still had a good time with that. I regret watching it, but I found something to enjoy.
Well, there you go, mate. Practically a recommendation for you. But I do know what you mean. Boy, that point in the film, they've given up all pretense. I know I'll not get what I wanted, so I'm ready for the baffling. They never lost my interest. I was enjoying it. It's still a fine film in my eyes. Even if I found it disappointing in where they might have taken the story, for whatever reason, I was still ready to see it unfold, whether it be shock or morbid curiosity.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a horror movie, isn't it? Was it scary? Was any of it horrifying? Besides witnessing a woman ravaged by Alzheimer's.
My daughter doesn't like men. She never cleans her nails.
Besides the horrors of a debilitating and crippling disease and a few, perhaps, grotesque body transformations, were you horrified? Were you scared?
No, I really wasn't scared. But I don't think that a film might fail because because I'm not afraid of what I'm saying. There's a lot of people out there that might have a lower tolerance for the scares than I do. I might not be afraid of what I'm saying, but that doesn't mean that I'm not invested or interested in the events which are unfolding. Even if I'm not afraid, I'm still committed to the journey, committed to seeing where this story's headed. The simple premise of the oppressive, depressive horror of a medical documentary, a medical student's investigation to prove her thesis. That story escalated long before that, so I was ready for it.
I still wasn't scared.
And that's fine, mate. But just like the film did, I'll abandon the promise so we can move on to the story, on to other things.
And we're not going to talk about the characters? Shouldn't we talk about them first? You're always talking about the importance of characterization.
Well, that's just it. For the most part, the characters or the story.
Remember?
The story is about these people, what's happening to them. The story is unfolding in such a way that, at the very least, two of these people are fully integrated into it. Crucial.
If you remember your grandmother, she was frightening. She was...
They are part of the story, not just people intruding upon the events of the story.
Well, three people, which are intruding into the events of the story.
My PhD thesis film posits...
Yes.
Thank you for your hospitality. Appreciate it.
Sure, whatever, 2, maybe 3 of those people insert themselves into the events. But the 2 of them, really the main characters, the 2 people most involved, the story would have happened whether or not the filming ever took place. It's just that the film crew are in a perfect position to document everything.
Their happening to be there is coincidental, just a contrivance. Mia somehow picked the best and worst candidate, the worst for her study, but the most interesting.
I think that you would be better off with someone else. I'm sorry.
Are you saying it's a bad thing just how the crew stumbled into this little slice of madness?
No, not at all. It's just the way that the story starts for us. It's been going on for much longer, set into motion by events far in the past. This is just the way we pick it up. This is just the way the narrative starts. It's not that it's a bad thing. It just happens to be this way. It's not something that's solving a problem for the characters or the story.
And that's all well and good, but this film is doing something that, well, it's doing something I just love. It's fan-fucking-tastic to see. It's the integration of characterization, development into the story itself.
After the premature death of her husband Dennis, Deborah was forced to provide for 2-year-old Sarah on her own.
Ice is there, mate.
Yes, that is your go-to, your vaunted all-important characterization.
And would go on to start a highly successful switchboard answering service for the town of Eczema.
I'm surprised you can talk at all. Shall I give you a moment? Do you need the room so you might fillet the film any harder?
Put down the knife!
Oh, I piss off. If the film does something well, I want to talk about it. And this...
That was the way that professionals received their messages.
I was the nexus of this town.
Yeah.
Doctors.
It might not be given the depth of a character study, but it does give us a bit more to work with.
Well, that is true. It's undeniable. There is certainly more to work with here than there was in the last film.
You're right over there. Must have killed you to say that much.
I died a little bit inside. Yes.
As you will. But here, the story really focuses on these 2 people. It is a story about, well, quite exactly what the doctorate thesis of Mia puts forth in the beginning.
This insidious disease not only destroys the patient, but has a physiological influence on the primary caregiver.
That this malady ravages and affects one person directly, but the results of this debilitation have secondary effects on those around them.
It doesn't matter anyway because, wow, your blood pressure.
Yes, I think I recall her saying something about that near the opening of the film. I suppose you could apply that to the rest of the movie as a whole.
Exactly. Right here, this story, the focus of the story is on these 2 characters. They are a result of actions taken by Deborah in the past, and now that the effects of those actions are felt, this story comes about from those actions. It is their effects on the present, how it destroys not just one life, but that of everyone around them.
I'm doing it. That is obscene. Why didn't you stop me?
It is how Sarah is affected by those actions to which she had no part. It is a story concerned with a family history, that of Deborah and her daughter Sarah.
I had to cover for all of these people.
You didn't have to. You chose to.
Well,
I won't say that it wasn't the intention of the filmmakers, but it does seem like a stretch. You may have to apply that broadly. And at the point at which you can apply that, I would, perhaps could argue the same for, say, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
A bunch of us parents tracked him down after they let him out. He's dead, honey, because Mommy killed him.
The actions of the past by the parents affecting the lives of their children in the present.
Kinda misses the whole disease part, but maybe.
Fine. If that's what you want to say about that, then fine. I am not concerned with whether or not the idea, the concept, can represent a theme of the film. I just won't entertain it. If we could redirect back to your original topic, the weaving of characterization into the story or the film, I'd much rather hear about that.
As organizational thinking is compromised.
You can't just ignore what I'm saying.
But how do you fight your way through something you can't see or know?
The film can be seen as a character study. Those are your words. It's not deep, but it gives us what we need to form some kind of attachment to the characters. It does that as the framework is about the study and detail of a family. Sarah and Deborah receive most of the screen time.
Little puzzles, I do crosswords, I'm lifting weights.
They have the most presence in the film. The other characters do not receive nearly as much screen time.
Hey, Luis, you go first.
God damn, Fine. That famous soy. Yeah, the beginning of the film does receive its share of moments for the characters, exploring them and who they are.
Worry, sweetie. I'll clean this up, okay?
Thank you so much.
It's good stuff. Really enjoyed it. It's enough for what's needed. So I will say that you can form an attachment to the characters within.
Oh, dude, no.
Yeah, we won't be touching that.
You're a curious guy, huh?
It's still light on it, but you do come away with some sense of liking or disliking the characters for who they are.
Yeah, St. Bernardine's.
Immaculate conception here.
Good Catholic boy, huh? Devil love you.
You know them, even if it's just a little bit.
I would attribute that to what I view as the film being in a rush to get to the action, almost like a child in a hurry to grow up.
It does kind of get abandoned, mostly, once everything starts going. So all these moments, they're focused around the beginning of the film, as it gives us that attachment before everything starts going. It gives us that attachment, so we care about them once all the events start getting crazy. There are some good moments. Still really like it.
And it is aided by the smallest of characters in the movie.
Exactly. They keep the cast small, really helps to keep the focus tight. It's not more than we need, and it helps to keep the cost low. They got to stretch that dollar where they can, so they might put it towards, some other things.
Which is the exact reason I'm convinced you don't see much of the two cameramen, Lewis and Gavin.
All right, Luis. You always said don't mess with your equipment. Where are you at right now?
It's been a long time since I hung out on the porch. It's nice. It's nice.
That in the fact that they're both men behind the lens. But I get your meaning. We don't see much of those two, and one of them even leaves a bit into the film.
Gavin train's pulling out, bro. Last call, man.
Out of all the characters, he makes the most sensible decision. He takes a speedy exit, stage left. I can't fault him for that.
And maybe he does make the right call, but he's still a coward.
Fuck both of you.
And since there are only a handful of them, I might as well name them now. And no particular order. You have Gavin and Lewis, the two cameramen, the film crew that Mia hired. They've not got surnames, but they do receive a better character here and there.
To our fucked up childhood.
And really, it's enough.
Character or not, they aren't shown to be much more than average, everyday people.
Oh, yeah? Good Catholic boy, huh?
They don't have any personal stakes in what's happening or the story. They are subject to some of the problems that Deborah's condition brings.
Double my fucking rate or I leave. I walk right now.
So they get scared. They're uneasy. They're shown to be concerned about themselves and their well-being before anything else.
Hey, oh, hey.
And if he gets it, I get it too.
I don't blame them for that. I'm not even sure if they are students like Mia, or if they were just hired by her to film. That distinction isn't made clear.
You need this paycheck as much as I do, man.
Exactly.
Please
Luis
don't
knows how to
leave.
be a team player.
We do know that one of them has their mom's minivan. Whether they're boring it with their permission or not is left to speculation.
Harris, what the fuck are you?
My mom's minivan, you fucking...
They both need the money, so they could be in uni. It's not confirmed, but we do have very little to go on with their backgrounds.
I would have left with Gavin.
And I'm surprised that they do stick around for as long as they do, considering their lack of personal investment.
Fucking leaving is what I am.
What, you
Back,
start
man.
projects like this and you just bounce in the middle of it?
Lewis and the rest of them stick around, but from appearances, the story is rather low stakes.
I fucking can't thank you enough, you guys. Oh my God.
And that's only from appearance. We don't really learn much of the overall plan or what's at stake. What we do know, it means the world to them.
What do you think?
Let's just, yeah.
The stakes are monumental. They're imperative. Means the world to them.
Except for Mia, the medical student. She's the chief force behind the documentary, the entire framework of the film. To her credit or detriment, she's there all the way to the end.
Either help us or shut the fuck up.
Says a medical student trying to defend her doctorate thesis.
My PhD thesis film posits that
The one paying the crew, or at least authorized to pay him. Not really sure how any of that works.
You have the grant money, right?
Yes.
So that's what we're counting
No,
on?
yeah, definitely. It's part of the deal. Roanoke will also help underwrite some of the healthcare costs as well.
She's average every day, not really extraordinary, though she does come through for Sarah in extraordinary circumstances.
She's also shown to lie when she's trying to persuade the Logans after Deborah shows her hesitation.
You know, actually, my grandfather had the disease.
What the fuck is that about your grandfather? I thought they were all vacationing in New Zealand.
Can't blame her on that one, mate. And she does eventually come clean about it. Not that it matters by the time she goes.
Lied. In the beginning, I lied about my grandfather.
I don't give a shit. You're here now.
Guess she just doesn't want to go through with all of that with any regrets.
It's not quite the throwaway line it might appear to me. She remembered the lie long after I forgot about it. It shows that it was still weighing on her long after. It's still on her mind when everything has gone sideways. It does reinforce the fact that she is, overall, a good person.
Not as though we needed that. Already know that she's risking her life for someone she barely knows. No benefit to herself.
You lost your mind?
I'm sorry. I can't leave Sarah. I can't leave the...
She doesn't really know either of them, and she could just up and leave, the way Gavin does. She's not getting anything out of this. She's got no stakes in this game. These people are practically strangers to her, but she still sticks with them. Shay's aces in my book gets a gold star.
Those three characters are what I would consider outsiders to the situation. The ones who are intruding upon the events. They have the choice to leave.
Yeah, they get a choice. You get the film crew as the observers, and you have those who are caught up in the events, either through their past actions catching up to them, or being family of those who did them.
Don't worry, I plan on dying of cirrhosis of the liver anyway, okay?
Deborah and Sarah Logan, the lovable old cute Paris. This story, it's about them.
Why don't you give a little break on the film, try to catch your breath.
This is only a distinction post-viewing. I don't think of the first group as separate, not while watching the film, except for Gavin. They made themselves part of this story. They are not separate. They're not irrelevant, but there is a difference. The film crew stumble into these events, and they are the perspective we see the story unfold from.
Okay, how are you feeling?
Sure, sort of our eyes and ears in a way. This is me as movie. They're the ones documenting everything which is happening. So what if they get caught up in the story? So what if they're just the people who got tangled into everything? They do make themselves part of Deborah's story, because that's what this really is. This is the Logan family story.
I was all alone with a small child.
You can't tell Mom not to do something.
The story itself is focused on Deborah and Sarah. If this truly is a character study, as you put it, then they are the subject of this film, and the horror is chiefly concerning them. The stakes are theirs.
Since the narrative is focused on them, they are the characters we find out most about. They are the subject of the footage in universe, so we get to learn all manner of things about them.
It becomes clear that Sarah has found her own coping mechanisms.
The little things, the nice little touches.
Oh, I used to know the name of this bird.
Were you ever in Germany?
No,
It's always been a regret of mine.
You went to Germany?
And those little facts we do learn have some meaning to them. They have some relevance to the story.
No, we don't entertain
an amazing
anymore.
artist.
No, it's a hobbyist. I'm not
Oh, I mean,
Most of everything we see does have a meaning that you can see if you watch it again.
I'm going to put...
Of course, you mean besides furthering the attachment between the audience and the characters.
These little moments are great if you're watching the film, and I don't mean like some do with a big bucket of popcorn and a phone out while waiting for something to pop out and give you a scare.
I've never known you not to have popcorn when watching
You
a movie.
damn Roy, you've seen my supply. I'm never running out of that. I can go through 2 or 3 bags while watching a film.
That is unfortunately true. And equally unfortunate is that I believe you're overselling these moments. The little things are not subtle. They're easy to pick out once you understand what the film is doing.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's in the freezer. What's any place she didn't want?
They can be a nice touch, but you see the strings being pulled.
would never dream of speaking to anyone the way I evidently spoke to you.
They may be right about that, but they all need to be subtle. The kind of blink and you miss it type of thing. They're the kind of thing that makes a rewatch, a second viewing more rewarding.
She's convinced there's been an intruder. We're nailing the windows shut again.
Sure, they're not earth-shattering or groundbreaking, but they're enjoyable. This is entertainment, and that's what I'm looking for.
Not no choice, babe. She's not making it easy. She doesn't want my help.
These moments that I'm talking about, the character development that the film can really lean into, focus on, is here where you can see where some of the strengths of found footage are.
You know, Ma, she sent me away to Richmond in '76, boarding school. I was 10.
You mean as a low-budget interview movie, mimicking the style of a documentary?
Her misfiring synapses, like the phone lines being pulled from their jacks.
People sitting around and discussing a subject or a topic.
Okay, fine.
Thanks.
Awesome. Happy?
I am happy.
Awesome.
No, I don't mean nothing like that. You talking about exposition, just talking to a camera, telling the audience things.
You diagnosed with 95% certainty that she was in the early stages of Alzheimer's.
What I'm saying is how this film does the opening, where we follow Deborah for a bit, like when she's gardening or she's talking to the film crew.
Debbie in the garden. Zoom in, slow push.
Where they're introducing themselves.
It's just a hobbyist. I'm not
I
an
mean,
amazing
you're perfect.
artist.
There's a lot.
And getting to know each other. The film, in the beginning, is able to forge that connection.
Does it taste all right? Is it sweet enough?
Yeah.
Make the audience care about Deborah and Sarah. We learn a bit about them. We learn enough to care about them.
Please and thank you. Kiss her ass. Smile.
Point noted.
I mean, I'm sorry.
So we care about the events unfolding to them. We don't learn everything about them, but that's not necessary. We learn enough.
My girlfriend Shelley, I could not tell her the truth. I just told her I was moving back home for a couple months.
We learn enough to sympathize, maybe empathize with them. Due to the subject matter of the excuse as to why they are filming, or able to prepare the audience to care about the subjects, to care about even the mundane struggles of living.
As the framework narrative is building a profile of Deborah, it is able to use that to its advantage to endear us towards both characters. I won't say that it's able to do that any better than most traditional films, just that it is able to employ different techniques in order to do so.
You can only face it head on, hopefully with dignity and grace.
It's no different than Dmitri asking Sergei questions. This is just better done.
That's not a high bar you've gone and set, but it's probably the best I'll get out here. And it's not just interviews, not just Deborah telling us about herself. Sarah has plenty to say on her mom.
Mom, you come off kind of salty, but it's all an act. I'm excited you're here.
And the film crew even had time to do some post-production on the footage they recorded.
Alzheimer's occurs when abnormal protein fragments accumulate in the hippocampus.
For right now, we're on the subject of Deborah and her history.
Switchboard answering service for the town of Eczema.
Look at that. There she is operating a switchboard. They give her a decent little history. What happened with the family? That kind of thing.
After the premature death of her husband Dennis to a pulmonary embolism.
Is that a shirt of your dad's?
Details that are established early in the film. Things that can inform the narrative. We really learn everything we need to. The audience can focus on the character and the events unfolding to them. We learn other things along the way, but they're not as important.
And some of which we learn is relevant. Imagine that. We uncover clues to this entire ghastly enterprise.
A highly successful switchboard answering service.
You know, I was the nexus of this town. Doctors, lawyers, I had to cover for all of these people.
It isn't just Deborah that the film is focused on, but also her daughter Sarah. Since those two are really the central figures of the story and the events, they receive the most characterization.
She caught me kissing Annie Phelps, and Mom was so mad.
We learn a bit about her as we follow along. They're both pretty likable characters.
We're gonna have fun, right?
Yeah, man.
Okay, good.
You feel sorry for both of them, for the situation they're in, all the events happening to them. Downright shame.
Yes, the unfortunate circumstances surrounding the narrative, the very beginning, they're quite depressing. It's horrible. I felt terrible for those two.
Stop. No.
I am very thankful that the film decided not to spend its length on such a subject. Sarah is a friendly, easy-to-like kind of character.
Hi. Do I look okay? I'm gonna be all tucked in.
She has a healthy background about her. We learn a bit about her childhood.
She loved cars. She was a big ball player.
Never was comfortable in a dress.
She had to apparently put her life on pause to take care of her mother.
My girlfriend Shelley, I could not tell her the truth. I just told her I was moving back home for a couple of months.
What I really wasn't expecting was for her to take center stage as the protagonist of the film.
She is one of the two subjects, and the main source of reliable information, given the other's mental state. She also gets the most screen time. Who else would be the protagonist?
It seemed as if that could have been relegated to Mia.
She just needed a little nudging.
She does speak to the camera at the very beginning, and it is her doctorate thesis that she's attempting to support through the evidence that she's gathering here.
These people were broke.
She's behind on the house, but she won't sell. Sarah's in a tough spot.
She's giving us background information to how her film works behind the scenes, such as the funding and the explanation as to why.
You have the grant money, right?
Roanoke will also help underwrite some of the healthcare costs as well.
Well, you thought wrong then. It's Sarah, it's Deborah, it's their family, their story. This is a deeply personal film, intimate even as we go through their lives.
I didn't know you guys were going to come in, like, right away.
Right.
Well, maybe it would have been if it didn't abandon that so early into the film. Perhaps if they went for something more akin to an emotional horror, suspense, a drama. instead of picking up the pace and trying for something more akin to action.
Well, I don't know about any of that, but they do speed it up a bit, lose a bit of the slow build-up and tension. If they had wanted a slow, oppressive atmosphere, they might have gone without the film crew. Just had the story be Sarah recording her mother, trying to capture those last bleeding moments. Since they do rash up the intensity, I'm guessing it's necessary to add me and the film crew so they can document it so Sarah can take center stage.
And I still appreciate that we didn't have to deal with 60 to 90 minutes of watching someone's slow mental degradation, wondering if there was really anything more going on. That is a kind of fatigue I will happily forego.
That's fair. I completely understand. That's not what we got, so that's not what we're gonna talk about. What we are gonna talk about is the story you see. Due to some financial troubles, some agreements have been made between Mia, Sarah, and Deborah for their participation into this study.
Alzheimer's is never about one person, but has a physiological influence on the primary caregiver.
Mia is helping to gather evidence to defend her thesis, the effects of Alzheimer's in the people surrounding the afflicted person. It's not the entire truth that Mia tells the family, but it's not far off from them all.
No, it's not a far stretch. She may be comfortable bending the truth, but not an outright lie, though she does get caught up in telling one in the moment.
There, that's true, I suppose. But the film proceeds from there. The crow meeting Deborah and Sarah. They have some charming moments together.
Didn't cook it all the way through. I'm just going to taste the vanilla in it. That's my secret.
Like I said, I do like those moments. They all know it. I don't know if they have chemistry.
It's been a long time since I hung out, which is nice.
Really?
It's nice.
Yeah.
But the people, they're meeting, they're talking, they feel like people. It feels, maybe it's a little awkward at times, but it doesn't feel, at least to me, forced.
The story is rather simple. Their interactions are not beyond the scope of the average, at least for the most part. They are acting, but they're just trying to act as if they're normal people.
This is not normal. This is not a normal, whatever you're calling it.
They react to some unexplainable situations at times, but they're not doing more than what you might consider as normal.
It's not about the window, okay? What about the switchboard, huh? What about the fucking window opening and closing? The bitch levitated onto a counter.
Or what could be considered a normal reaction to the strange and unbelievable.
Well, I suppose I might liken it a bit to the Blair Witch Project. They were, if memory serves, put out into the woods with very little direction. Shesko left some notes, explained what was happening that day in the short, where the characters were mentally, their motivations were, and told to act in film while reacting to the strange things that were set up for them to come across, or during the night shots when the other crew or the director would come around to make noises and mess with them.
Are you telling me that the Blair Witch Project didn't have a script? I'm shocked. No, really. Look at me. Look, I'm stunned. I'm dumbfounded.
That's not what I'm saying, and you know it.
Then stop bringing up the Blair Witch Project.
You know that's not gonna happen. Just
to shut Barry up about the Blair Witch Project. In this movie, the story begins with the arrival of Mia, Gavin, and Lois to gather footage and interview Deborah and Sarah. In the process of documenting everything, recording the decline of Deborah and how it affects those close to her, they begin to witness the horrors of her condition.
Whatever it is, Whoa, put that down!
As well as some other things which can't be explained.
Mom's old switchboard system, it hasn't worked in years. Are you okay, Mom? 1 second.
Okay.
I would say it's slow, the first 10 or so minutes, but most of that is rather mundane and explainable by the disease. A bit of it doesn't make sense without the greater context of the situation. It's in a state similar to what you're advocating for. uncertainty to the cause of these actions, as at that moment,
Tell me if this water is too hot.
it makes logical sense to attribute these strange happenings and behavior simply to the disease itself.
You really gave us all quite a fright with your late night gardening.
Yeah, it does. There's a few things like that in the film. Caught me wondering whether some of these things are true or not true. At the onset, it does seem that it's the disease which is affecting her. There are bits here and there that do support that she does have the disease, at least in some capacity.
Yes, I would say that she does have the disease. The rate of mental decline is abnormal for whatever reason, but there is some history in the family.
If you remember your grandmother, she was frightening. She would leave a pot on the stove.
And as the crew documents, these effects on her family, which really only include Sarah, as her husband Dennis passed much earlier in life.
The premature death of her husband Dennis to a pulmonary embolism, Deborah was forced to provide for 2-year-old Sarah on her own.
So there is only one person around to be affected by all of this. Hardly a good case study, in my opinion. But they see more and more of these events happening, some of which are traumatic, even violent.
Okay, you know what? Can you show Deb? Deb, don't stop!
Until they show us that something is more than meets the initial assumption.
Thought you were about to say, more than meets the eye.
I did fight the urge. It was tremendous. I honestly don't know how I won.
Given those baser instincts you're bogan. And yeah, so, anyway, they get the first reveal that something more sinister is taking place.
Whoa, what's the
There's no break in the
She must have
time
climbed a
code.
chair or something, right? Like she grabbed a chair.
It's not just Sarah that they're filming. There is childhood friend and confidant of Deborah, or Mate Harris.
She's brave. She's generous and kind, but how do you...
Harris is a gentleman about her age, so he's an all-lifelong compatriot. Don't quite know where he lives or much at all about him. Just that he's Deborah's closest friend, thick as thieves.
Money's the issue. I can sell my tractor or I can sell Suburban.
He seems like an excellent fellow, willing to do what he has to protect his friend.
You get rid of him, or I will.
He advocates for her in several instances, even against the wishes of Sarah, which she thinks may be best for her mother. Beyond that, we don't know much more.
Give you a little break on the film, huh? Let her catch your breath.
He does get some screen time, opportunities to have some moments, usually in the company of either Sarah or Deborah.
Thank you for all your help. It's fine. It's fine.
Like I said, he seems all right. He seems nice. And he does take some action. He's not entirely passive. Not just reacting to everything that's happening going on around him. He doesn't really push the story forward, except in one respect. He does try to put a stop to the whole nasty business.
I don't believe he gets all that much in the way of characterization. Those moments you're alluding to, they're hardly even that. Except for the doctor, I suppose that's all the characters, isn't it?
Oh, sure. Heaps of them, mate. Tons. You just weren't paying attention. Like you said, there is the doctor, and a few others. I mean, they're just kind of there. Even the doctor, the antagonist, is more of a force. He's there as a presence, mostly. It's kind of tough to explain it now, what my gripe with him as a character might be. I'll save that one till the end.
And that end is fast approaching. In the course of recording these strange events, seemingly caused by the affliction, it becomes clear to the crew and everyone involved that there is something else going on, that the affliction isn't just physical, but perhaps spiritual as well.
The bitch levitated onto a counter.
That's right. The happenings become too extreme, too violent. Soon Deborah has to be committed to a hospital for her and everyone else's safety. Things are just getting too intense for everyone to handle.
I would just mention that they've gone to the hospital a few times by this point to consult Deborah's doctor on her condition, to get tests, to fix up some of the more gory injuries that Deborah, Sarah, or anyone else might have sustained throughout the ordeal.
They do go to the hospital a few times throughout. Helps break up the stagnation of locations a bit. The movie is mostly spent filming at the family house, which is large. It's nice if a little old.
Is it better than simply wandering around the woods for an hour and a half? I'm not impressed by the locations, but they did draw me out of the movie. I don't have anything to say about them in particular, not to praise or even critique. I didn't give them any thought at all, which may be a condemnation all in itself. They're like wallpaper. You don't really notice it.
Well, I don't know what you're looking for from me on that one. I wouldn't say that I was bored either. I may not have liked the hospital in particular. Maybe it was just some of the scenes which took place there, but I just wasn't overly fond of that place. I much more enjoyed the house. It had a cozy atmosphere to it. A little sinisterly vague, a little vaguely sinister. More could have been done with on my date, but beyond that, not much to say.
They have a hospital. It looks like a hospital. It's convincing enough. They probably film a few shots in and around the hospital, so it's enough when they do talk to a doctor or need to engage in some of the services in first aid that you're not drawn out of it. I will agree that there are some scenes in particular I did not wish to say, and they mostly take place at the hospital.
Hell, the hospital. Just one of the few locations that they do go to. I don't mind that the film doesn't shoot in many places. I imagine it does help to keep the budget down. Helps the film do more with what little resources they got scraped together. You know, all before the mighty dollar. So I imagine the movie had to keep sets, locations, cast to a minimum, which has its strengths, its weaknesses. I certainly don't mind. I could see if it did, though.
It is a short list of locations. There's shots in cars while driving, shots in and around the Logan house. There's a few at the hospital, and a few other places like a forest and an abandoned mine. I have no idea if they really went to an abandoned mine to film. Could be anything.
Oh, I don't know if it's a cave, a cavern, mine shaft, whatever it is. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. They probably didn't build any sets for the film, just not to spend too much on anything.
I wouldn't bet against that. But the story continues with the discovery that there is a malignant presence attached to Deborah.
The notion of spiritual parasites does exist among many thousands of cultures.
They discover this by they do talk to a priest, but he's utterly worthless.
Exorcism is really in the realm of science fiction. You need to accept this.
I believe it's the professor of anthropology who does explain what's happening to the audience.
We'll be doing some shooting of
Please have a seat.
Boy, someone's got to explain it to the characters. It's not like any of them would know any of this. Or I don't know any of this, so I can't expect the characters to know anything either.
The other characters wouldn't know any of that, but it is one of those ghastly scenes, one of the most horrifying in any movie.
The most logical explanation for all this.
Exposition. They have to explain what is going on, how they believe they can cure or fix the problem, and tell the characters what to do.
The belief is that a weak mind is susceptible to the invasion of vengeful entities.
Also, I found it very strange that for a movie about possession...
Oh, you gone and gave it all away, mate. How could you?
Wait, were you planning on keeping that a secret? No. The priest is a worthless character who only shows up to say that he can't help them.
You need to accept this. You really do.
That no one in the church can help them, and he doesn't know what to do. Not because the possession is, well, I believe the film explained that this is a spiritual malignancy.
Spiritual parasites, vengeful entities, seeking a host.
And it has a basis in Native American tribal beliefs or origins.
Among many thousands of cultures in various incarnations.
It may be a demon, but in some sense it's separate from the church.
A very specific Monacan blood ritual was offered to the demon in exchange for immortality.
Well, that's not exactly fair. It's true that the priest or maybe the church can't help, but it's because they just don't do that kind of thing anymore. Exorcisms and whatnot.
Well, the first thing, I'd have to get him into a time machine and get him back to the 16th century.
They might take seriously anything of an evil spiritual nature which might come to afflict people. Seems a bit old to me. The entire institution is rooted in the religious, the spiritual.
Well, it just doesn't happen anymore since we learned about mental illness, paranoia, schizophrenia.
But all right, seems decadence and decay has set itself into the church. They just don't do that kind of thing anymore.
Well, who are you gonna call? Forget films like The Exorcist.
I've never met one priest who has performed an exorcism, not one.
They go to an anthropology professor for help to see if he knows what they should do, and he does offer some advice.
A witch doctor came and burned the boy's body, flesh to ash, purification by fire.
And Sarah accepts that, both in an act of desperation to save her mother and a way to explain the unexplainable.
I used to think that. I still do, maybe, but it's not gonna hurt.
Yeah, seems Deborah's condition has been declining rapidly this whole time.
You said 2 or 3 or more years, possibly.
Becoming increasingly violent. Her health has been deteriorating, both mentally, physically, in unexplainable ways.
A disturbing infection has occurred, resulting in an inexplicable scaly quality to Deborah's skin.
She's becoming more horrific, more monstrous. Her physical appearance. I don't mean that due to her advanced age, but rather a transformation has begun to take place. She's becoming grotesque and a little unsettling and disturbing to look at.
It's not pleasant to witness. The makeup team, and I assume most of it's done with makeup, but the makeup is really well done for what it is, at least in the early stages. They truly are able to capture or recreate the unsettling, even disturbing and yet believable physical appearance of this horrific disease. The decline through most of the film is represented quite adequately. They do a good job. I appreciate the subtlety, the more realistic approach to that physical degradation. It's never too over the top, and they
Never. Bloody hell, you'll be walking that one back.
It's in a good place for most of the film.
I can think of a few sports they do push it too far.
I know, okay, they do. There is a point where they do take it too far, but that is not till the very end of the movie, and I appreciate that.
And it'll be here quick. Can't blame Sarah for accepting what the professor told her, that she's witnessed things which can't be explained.
Pull the sound off the camera from the switchboard, and it wasn't on any acoustic range I've ever heard before.
Quite a few things, boy, this point. She's been embroiled in her mother's strange behavior.
That's your mom, and that's French.
Ma doesn't speak French.
She's desperate. Her and Harris both are, and they both take action to try to quell this spiritual force. To stop a man from their past, pulling his way out of the grave and into the present.
The professor explains that they should destroy the body of this spiritual parasite, whatever it is which has attached itself to Deborah.
Yeah, it's something like that. They find out from Harris that Deborah, when they were both much younger, killed a doctor in the area.
You killed him? Huh?
Who may have been murdering young girls in a bizarre and ritualistic fashion, some bargain to preserve his own life.
4 young girls dead.
Whoever performed the murders was reenacting a very specific Monacan blood ritual.
And to the film's credit, there are explanations as to why or how she might have found out. Nothing solid or concrete in the exact details, but those may not be important. It seems Deborah pieced it together, and the doctor's plans may have involved the sacrifice of Sarah. I like that it was mentioned that Sarah was shipped off to boarding school. It may not have been to protect her from the doctor's intentions, but rather her mother being unable to process the trauma of what she had to do with her daughter around. Sarah, a reminder of what she had to do. Messy business, even if it is to end the life of a child murderer.
Yeah, a lot of little things here and there that add to the relationship between mother and daughter.
This is Sarah's room.
That's
you can
my
just take a
room?
look. I was never really allowed in here.
You get a real sense that Deborah might have done it to protect her daughter, but Sarah doesn't know. She has her own thoughts as to why her mother might have sent her away.
She sent me away to Richmond in 76, boarding school.
There is a distance between the characters in the present.
My daughter doesn't like men. She never cleans her nails.
Not quite a feeling you get between them, that they get along all that well.
Go back to Richmond. I know you miss your lady friend anyway.
Wait, just one moment. The idea that they have some distance, I would say, is not observed in their actions. If throughout the film Sarah appears as dutiful to her mother, if not for a few comments made here or there, I would say that they have a healthy relationship. Yes, it may not be overly affectionate, but from the way they act, I would say they care deeply for one another. They're no worse than Connecticut families. A little cold, perhaps, but they still love each other.
I hate to say this. I hate to break it to you, but I think you're still fucked by your own family. You don't know what a normal, loving family even looks like. I'm not going to be calling on you as an expert witness or not.
I refuse to acknowledge that. Outside of the few comments which are made, I witness a daughter who is devoted to her mother, who puts a pause on their own life, their own relationship. She might not have needed to do that. Harris is a close friend and lives nearby, but she does what she can to protect her mother and acts, even when she is imperiled by these forces, to save her. She, a daughter, is desperately trying to save her mother, a much older person nearing the end of her life.
Help me! Okay? Please, Mia!
Who has a fatal, uncurable disease which will destroy her as a person. There is saying that a parent should never have to bury their child, that most parents would rather be the ones to die if it means their child will live. And in these circumstances, that seems even more appropriate to not have the daughter sacrifice herself. It's not even one life for one. It's less than a life for one.
I get you, mate, sure. The daughter does a lot for her mom. Even if she does succeed, she's still going to lose her sooner rather than later. They don't show the emotional distance between them, but that it's not exaggerated.
Wouldn't you agree? I mean, you always look so pretty.
Whatever. Okay, fine.
It's a very believable distance, the kind of thing you might expect from two people who love each other.
Mia asked, what's a clue for me? And that was a clue.
All right. That was a clue.
But still disagree about each other's lives.
Oh, that shirt I hate. Can't you wear a nice blouse?
I don't have a blouse.
It seemed normal to me, Barry.
I know, but just keep going. You're making it worse.
I just mean to say that outside of a few comments that either of the women make, there is not a reason to suspect a distance. And Sarah, the devoted and loving daughter, along with Mia and Louis, returned to locate the body of the doctor and destroy it.
Mia, stop her, please. Huh?
Wait, where are you going?
And then she got sick and he infected her.
I believe it's to purify the remains through fire in order to exorcise the malignant spirit. Something like that.
There were mentions of Deborah digging in the gardens, of trying to get out of the house at night, trying to dig something up.
Where is my spade?
I didn't take it!
She had nailed the windows shut, had hidden her trowel.
She's convinced there's been an intruder.
Things of the disease of the affliction, but in retrospect, may have been her fading presence attempting to stop the doctor's plans. Who we learn was in control of her at times.
I would never dream of speaking to anyone the way I evidently spoke to you.
Thanks for spelling that one out for us. Like I said, good moments that seem perfectly explainable, strange, but have some rationalization, though when looking back, take on a different, more sinister meaning. These are the little things that the film does well.
It's not enough for the film to rely upon, but they are a nice touch, as you said. These little moments of yours throughout the film, they do provide some meaning, and one which rewards a second viewing. But they return to the Logan house only to find...
No way. No way.
And they do find the body. After digging for a bit around in the gardens, they attempt to burn it. Unfortunately, they are unable to do so when the spiritual presence of the doctor, a man by Henry Desjardins,
With all due respect, sir?
resurfaces to stop them. A minor explosion which knocks them away and puts out the fire.
From there, they return to the hospital, hoping to get some help from Harris or her mother. Once there, they discover that her mother has escaped and kidnapped a young girl with terminal cancer, think it's leukemia. Taking her off into the night, they suspect correctly that she's taken the girl to an abandoned mine in the mountains, the location of a Native American myth.
Well, he's got to complete the ritual, right? The fifth girl. There's no place he'd go. The cave system. He's headed to Monica Mountain.
Of this demonic, snake-like entity, according to a Monacan myth.
The choice of the Monacan mines was no accident. Built over a cave system sacred to the natives, which fed directly into the River Rouge.
I'm no expert, but I do wonder if this story was rooted in actual Monacan myth, or if it was simply made up for the film. The movie has shifted into such a frenetic pace that there simply isn't time to think about this. You don't think much about what's happening, how Deborah is able to drive a car in her state.
Sarah and their group come across a sheriff, Linda Twee, and most likely her deputy. One of those was introduced earlier in the film when Harris was having a ripper of a time.
It's a good thing that they do introduce Sheriff Linda Tweed earlier in the film. She's never given much characterization, but during the pursuit up the mountain, she is the only one who suffers a fatal injury. Really, it's surprising.
I'm all surprised that the sheriff actually takes them with her. I mean, I'm aware that the sheriff is acquainted with both Harris and Deborah, knows them by first name. She must be aware of the locals.
Get in. There's a fire trail on the other side, gets us about halfway up.
But she does take the woman suspected of kidnapping an almost 10-year-old girl, her daughter, into the mountains with her, and takes along her film crew. And during this, they're allowed to keep filming. I don't know, bit hard to believe.
Indeed. And stopping before their destination, they find Deborah and Kara. During an altercation to get the child back, the deputy he has venom spat in his face. I assume it's venom, of course. Earlier in the film, Deborah bites someone and causes them to go into, I believe, anaphylactic shock due to snake venom, at least by the input of the doctors.
Security guard downstairs has gone into anaphylactic shock. He's being treated with snake venom.
But the deputy now must be taken down the mountain for medical aid.
Somebody to get him down the mountain.
Lisa, it's gotta be you, man. That's gotta be you.
Leaving Sarah, Mia, and Linda to go rushing off into the mines to find Deborah and the child.
Does the deputy get a name? I can't even remember. I mean, I know the sheriff's name is Linda. Kara's named several times, the little girl, but for the life of me...
I don't care. I won't say that they don't have names, only that they lack substance. They don't get characterization. I don't care what you say. Those three people, they don't really receive anything. Linda is shown to care about Harris, bend the rules and be understanding.
That's your will, mate. And during the initial confrontation, the deputy is incapacitated by Deborah's venom. Lewis is sent down the mountain with them.
Get him down. Be safe, Lewis.
we only have Mia left to film. It's through her perspective that we see that awful, terrible moment.
And you're not talking about the death of Sheriff Linda Tweed. She didn't receive any characterization, not enough for me to care about her. She was only in the movie several times. You're talking about the other moment. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. Like I said, I was too stunned. It looks ridiculous. After wandering around in the dark caverns for a while, they come across absurdity, bordering on hilarity. And you can't tell me otherwise.
I hadn't planned on it.
They find Deborah locked in the throes of her snake-like transformation. Her jaw is unhinged or extended, and is in the process of swallowing the child whole, her head engulfed by the woman's lips. I don't know if you need a minute, but perhaps I do.
You go right ahead. We'll get through this. They do manage to stop Deborah from completing what I assume to be part of this ritual. Through a mix of gunfire and emotional pleas.
Mom, fight him, Mom, fight him!
Maybe even the sedative. They manage to stop this bestial horror. And even managed to burn the remains of the doctor, which I assume they carried up the mountain with them. So, cheers everyone. Seems like it all worked out. She'll be apples.
Except they don't. We don't get much of an epilogue. We don't really learn about what happened after all of that. To Mio, or her film crew, to Harris, even Sarah.
That Deborah Logan was found medically unfit to stand trial.
We learn that the police are unwilling to prosecute Deborah, as she's not mentally competent or fit to stand trial. That, after that night, she declined rapidly.
Logan's physical condition has deteriorated rapidly in the months since the violent ordeal and child abduction, leaving her barely able to speak or communicate.
This is what we are told through a series of short news reports. We don't see any of it, and we barely see her as she's pushed away in a wheelchair.
Yeah, there is that. Well, it feels like a punch to the guts. We don't really learn anything about, well, anything. And as a short, succinct news report, no details, no time for our other characters. We know that Sarah survived, at least initially, but that's it. Deborah's affliction may have destroyed her, and Kara herself has been returned.
Cancer patient Kara Minetti is resting comfortably at Eczema General tonight.
Yes, there's several news reports. One of which is a news reporter going to Kara's 10th birthday party.
I'm standing in front of the Minetti house, 10-year-old Kara, who's celebrating a special birthday.
The reporter interviews a little girl as she celebrates her birthday and miraculous recovery from leukemia.
She's in full remission from leukemia, and what many are calling a miracle.
A safe return from her abduction, and it's alluded to that Sarah and Mia did not succeed.
You better make a plan.
I have one. It's a secret.
Oh.
That the doctor has possessed or taken over this little girl. These parts are very clumsily done, almost shockingly so.
You're looking at the healthy and happy face of a remarkable 10-year-old girl.
Could be the acting of the little girl. Child actors sometimes aren't the best. But I agree. It's a real downer ending and it just comes out of nowhere. I don't even mean our heroes don't succeed. I mean the lack of clarity as to why, and the lack of resolution, closure on our heroes.
Maybe it is that they ran out of budget. They needed to wrap everything up, or maybe the ending had been different. I can't imagine that this was the vision for the ending, but it is remarkably similar to what the framework of the narrative was.
I can't even say that it comes out of nowhere or that it was a budget concern. It's so short. That segment can't be more than 2, maybe 3 minutes. I think I agree that they might wanted to do more for an ending, but maybe they had to compromise and wrap it up for whatever reason. They just had to come out with an ending.
Maybe the ending was burning Desjardins'
Henri Desjardins
remains in the mine, and that was it. And then someone told them that they had to add something on that explained things.
Just speculation. Could be any reason. And we're not about to find the answer in the film itself on this one.
Yes, that's probably accurate. The story isn't all that complex. There's not much to it. There's not much going on.
As I said earlier, the story is mostly just the story of the Logan family. It's simple. There's nothing wrong with that. Evil trying to, well, triumph, I guess. People just trying not to be caught up in it. It's a decent one. I like it. It's not the emotional journey I expected, but it's a good little film. And just because the story's finished, it doesn't mean we are.
Of course, the doctor. We still had to talk about him, didn't we?
Who is he, sir?
How kind of you. Right, so the story is simple, but it doesn't need to be extravagant. Doesn't need to be more than what it is. It just has to be effective. And these kinds of movies, since we're following the point of view of the characters so closely, we don't really learn everything. Sort of boots on the ground, if you would. If you're involved, you're not going to find out everything there is to know.
You mean because of the way stories are able to be told in other mediums, from multiple perspectives, where the scene can shift or focus to another place, setting or time more easily? Since we're following the experience of an average person caught in the middle of these events, we may not get a full understanding of them.
I suppose that's what I'm saying, something like that. So long as we don't get exposition poured over us.
The notion of spiritual parasites does exist.
We might have to glean some kind of understanding through context. But we got to work out what we can from the events of the story.
I thought you wanted to talk about the doctor. Why are we back onto the story? Didn't we just finish that?
Yeah, no, I'm getting to that. Trying to get a sense of who this other character is.
With the notable public boogeyman, Desjardins.
You asked earlier if we were forgetting anyone from the list of characters, and we did leave off the doctor. As you see, his presence is looming over the entire film.
Do you remember a man named Henri Desjardins?
That name sounds familiar.
Usually we don't directly interact with them, or the characters may not even be aware that they're interacting with them.
What am I doing? That is obscene. Why didn't you stop me?
Because this is the Taking of Deborah Logan. She's being controlled, influenced, or possessed by him at times.
Don't know the extent of that influence, what he might be able to do or not do from beyond the grave. All kinds of wacky things are happening. I mean, he's able to talk to Kara over the switchboard. I mean, is he calling a telephone? It's not exactly hooked up.
No, as you said, there are not a lot of certainties when it comes to him, his powers, his plans, or what can or cannot be done with the ritual. We don't know a lot of things. We know that Dr. Henri Desjardins,
Henri Desjardins is well known, respected. He does a lot of pro bono work.
Was a well-respected doctor in the area. Around the late 60s, early 70s,
Went missing in the early 70s.
Yeah, I was young, but I still remember the curfews.
he came down with a terminal illness, and he made a deal with an ancient Monacan demon for light.
Henri Desjardins had the ultimate motive. He was dying. He had Lou Gehrig's disease.
A ritual was required, of which 4 of 5 young girls were sacrificed
during the times of their first menstruations, bleeding flowers.
It was also suspected he may have escaped back to Quebec.
Desjardins is never seen again, and some say that he fled back to Quebec.
Yeah, all of that. We know that he was murdered by Deborah, and somehow, since he had made the pact and was in the middle of the ritual, I suppose his spirit was able to linger on in this world.
I know he didn't complete the ritual and be free from the human body. Only 4 victims appear.
Waiting for that slow decline of Deborah's health so that he could latch onto her, begin his plan all over again.
The belief is that a weak mind is susceptible to the invasion of vengeful entities.
I don't know what his plan was, only that his goal was to live, and now he's achieved that, so...
is a secret.
Yes, he can go back through the horrors of modern schooling, maybe go back through another almost decade of medical school. I hope he enjoys it. Other than what you just said, I really don't know anything about his character. They said he was well respected. Sure, if he was peering through the sod of Deborah at times,
is that this is of an educational nature. That interests me.
When she was weakest and he was able to overcome her willpower, we might at those times consider his actions, what was said, what he talked about, and try to understand his character through that. But it's difficult to understand through a lens of a facade. How much of it was Deborah? How much of her was even left considering the steep mental decline following him leaving her body?
Well, I was feeling peculiar, but not now. Now I feel right as rain.
How much was just an act put on by Deja Dole, pretending to be Deborah?
Louise, you hungry? Let's get some lunch.
Just like the ending, it lacks clarity. It's a trifling thing to contend with, I'll give you that one. If we are considering some of those moments to be when he is coming through, I'd say he's a bit of a violent, impatient sort. He's not really willing to wait much longer. He's got a bit of a temper. Can't be sure of any of that. And before you say anything, I discount Kara as a character because we never really meet her. Sure, she's in the film, but she's almost 10 years old and she's dying of cancer.
He's a nice man. He's gonna watch me.
We only ever see her when she's abducted by Deborah. While she's with her, she's pretty compliant, but also appears to be under the doctor's spell, his control or his influence. She seems almost hypnotized by the presence, repeating these lines over and over again.
And by the time she's recovered well enough to be seen, no longer a dying child, we see her during the news report.
I don't know how I'm tired of hospital food.
After she's been possessed by the spirit of Deja Dole. For all we know, that little girl doesn't even exist anymore. Her spirit's been snuffed out like a candle flame. The only thing left could be the doctor inhabiting her body. If that is him, he's a bit strange and he's almost giddy. There's no reason for him to say what he does except to inform the audience that he won.
You better make a plan.
I have one. It's a secret.
Oh.
He should have stuck to pretending to just be a 10-year-old girl.
If we want to understand the character, we'd have to peer through that kind of a distorted lens, the costume, the mask. He's the kind of spread across two people's second-hand testimony and background accounts that may be 30 to 40 years old, and the current actions of a spectral presence that may well be twisted by hate, malevolence, and impatience. All a difficult thing to sort out.
Letting all my heat out.
What we do know about him is mostly scraps of information. Things that were true when he was alive and throughout the film. He was intelligent, capable, spoke French, was willing to hurt or kill people to achieve his goals. And he was from Quebec. In other words, he was a bastard.
Oh, definitely. A complete bastard. A real butler, though. This way, the odds he pulls it all off. I don't know what he's going to do, but like I said before, the stakes of the story are the real low, not some world-ending cataclysmic thing. It's not even saving Deborah. Looks more like she was on the way out no matter what happened. It might have just been the life of a little girl at stake. And really, you don't need much more stakes than that. We're pretty high for that family.
You are not doing everything you can. You keep saying that. Everybody tells me they're doing everything.
Big surprise to Sarah. Hats off to her. She did her best. And she's not the only one. Not that we know all that much about any of it, but surprise to us, why weren't they able to stop the doctor from completing the ritual?
You caught me, mate. Like we both know, the movie don't explain a whole lot. Not how any of it even works. Could be that the anthropology professor in Rome,
I know he didn't complete the ritual.
he might not have known all the details. Maybe the characters missed something. Sure, it was a gut punch, but I guess anything could be the explanation. Professor Ole gave a possible explanation based off one experience he had with something similar. That of a mother whose child died, and she kept the body without letting go.
I saw a young mother so overwrought by the loss of her son to typhoid, she held his wasting corpse for over a month.
That was starting to take on aspects of the child, till finally the remains were burned and she returned to normal. Spells broken, as he said.
She took on the boy's affectations, his personality, his voice. She became him.
Yes, there was something about having to burn the body, which they attempt to do once at the Logan house, where the spirit of Deborah Logan puts out, and then once in the cabin. The film ends with that last one and then cuts to the police report.
It took 2 months before the spell was broken. The witch doctor came and burned the boy's body, flesh to ash, purification by fire.
That's 2-0 for Deborah Logan. Right shame. Sarah and Mia just couldn't get the job done.
Yes, but we don't know why. If we don't assume that the professor is wrong about how they might be able to stop this spirit, what do you think might have happened?
Not a clue. You see plenty of snakes roaming around the yard, in the garden, in the house. They might be servants of the demon. Maybe the spirit was transferred into the girl before they could finish burning the remains the second time. Deborah did have her mouth wrapped around the girl. Don't think that qualifies as being bathed in the river, the Rouge River, whatever it was.
There's nothing concrete, but I do wonder if perhaps when Deborah had dug up the remains earlier in the film, as we know she moved the body before Sarah and Mia were able to unearth the remains.
She got here first.
What?
Ma got here first.
Perhaps she separated a part of the remains before she stashed the body in the attic.
Deshay did like to garden. We see in the very first few minutes, her and Harris are digging up something got in a sack in a wheelbarrow. Pretty sure that's the same sack they discover his remains in. And there are those scenes where she's shown to be trying to eat things, stuff these toys in her mouth, and then before one of the trips to the hospital, she starts chucking up earthworms and soil. Maybe she went and swallowed a piece of them, as disgusting as that might sound. Not sure what that would do to the remains, or if she would pass it in that length of time.
The film is very ambiguous, which can be a good thing, but really, what does it come to in the end? The stakes of this story, and I don't mean it lightly, are just the life of a little girl. If Sarah and Mia don't get involved, and just let the doctor do what he intends to do, what even happens? The film doesn't offer more of an explanation, so I don't even know that. We don't know any of the doctor's plans or goals. He's not given much of a motivation besides wanting to live longer, and I can't blame him for that. Without anyone's participation, this story ends exactly the same way.
And so what? He murdered children. He's a fucker.
Yes, he was an evil bastard. We do know that, and you are right. I do wonder if that time we spent with the character is enough to motivate us, the audience, to care about the ending. I don't really care that the doctor succeeded. He's alive again. Okay. So what?
Gavin train's pulling out, bro. Last call, man.
I think there's enough for us to care about what happens to the characters. I mean, I did. I wanted to see Sarah live. Mia too. Gavin, Lois, Harris, Deborah. Just really, though, the ending. Besides the sudden rush into absurdity, even the gut punch of the doctor winning, it kind of cheapens the whole affair. The whole film just, I don't mean to say it's ruined, that's a bit dramatic. But for a film that focuses on the characters, it's a downright shame that we don't learn anything about the fates of them. I don't know what happened to Gavin, Mia, Lois, Harris. You see Sarah in one post-scene during the report, so she made it out of the mines. But that's it. Lois made it down the mountain maybe, but you don't even know that. If the drive of the film is, at the very least, that emotional connection, that caring we have for two characters, what's it matter about the story if we don't get a proper ending to their story, which really is the story? We need that closure. Did Sarah ever get back to be with her girlfriend after all this? I still don't really know what her name is. It's mentioned once. It's either Shelley or Shelby.
My girlfriend Shelley, I could not tell her the truth. I didn't have the balls to tell her the truth.
We don't know anything about her, just that they spent a couple months apart.
Alzheimer's is never about one person. My PhD I'm gonna start again.
Did Mia ever get enough evidence to defend her doctorate thesis? Did Galvin, the only smart person in the film, go home and have dinner?
No, there's nothing to talk about. I'm fucking leaving is what I am.
Who paid for his mom's windows? Was she upset that they got short out? We will never know the answer to these most pressing of questions. And this is a film about the characters, and we don't know what happened to these people. That's a downright shame.
That and the only lives that were at stake were two people, both of which were terminally ill, and most likely both of them were going to be dead soon. The little girl was ravaged by cancer.
Kara, who's in full remission from leukemia,
and may not have lived to even see her 10th birthday. Deborah was an old woman in her twilight years afflicted with Alzheimer's. She wasn't even going to be herself before she died. Besides the 4 other girls that were murdered in or around the 70s, the early 70s.
Spree of killings. That for the last 2 years, leaving 4 young girls dead.
As far as I can tell, 2 lives were coming to an abrupt end, and in their place, another was given a second chance. Even if he is evil, that's not the worst trade. And they said he was an accomplished doctor, well respected in the community.
But he's still a bastard, and it's never a good thing to say evil succeed. Usually want to see those kinds of things punished.
And I would like to know the fate of the characters. But if the film can't care enough to answer these questions, then I guess I'm not going to care that evil won.
A lack of certainty can engender speculation. Never reveal the solution to a trek or answer the question if you can help it.
And I know you kept it secret. At whom was that directed? Who was that about?
You're so vain, you probably think this song is about you.
Speculation might engender interest and investment. Helps to stick in people's minds a bit better.
Maybe in general, but not in this case. There is one thing I'm certain about, and that is, I didn't like the movie.
Big surprise there. You never like anything.
All right, but I didn't hate the movie either. You may have wanted it to be slower paced, but I wanted some closure. You did too. I wanted to know what happened to these characters. I wanted some explanation, some indication as to why they weren't able to stop the ritual, why they didn't succeed. We all want things, and I find myself wanting more. If we're supposed to care about these people, finding out their fate is a strange detail to leave out of the film.
Since we acquired this footage, because that's the whole thing about found footage, we're watching stuff that was supposed to be documented in our world, and we're seeing it for whatever reason, so it had to have gotten to us somehow. If we know that they rescued Kara,
Cara Minetti is resting at Eczema General tonight after a kidnapping ordeal,
captured Deborah,
reportedly abducted Cara Minetti, and was found medically unfit to stand trial.
The police had to have at least found the footage, and somehow it's been taken out of evidence.
Yes, that burden of reality is on the film for how this happened, isn't it? Since the documentation is extremely bizarre, I can't believe it entered into police custody as evidence. And there was at least some production done to the film.
You have the grant money, right? You know, it said so in the flyers?
Yes.
So that's what...
So I have to assume that someone from the film crew survived, had the footage. The police are not going to stitch together footage and add those creative elements and voiceovers.
Where's my girl?
Oh, I know what you mean, mate. The only people who are going to be editing it for a medical documentary is the film crew. Gonna assume that either Garvin, Lois, both survived. Mayor too. Garvin left early and Lois escorted the one sheriff down the mountain to get medical aid.
Get him down. Be safe, Luis.
And even with the extended timeline of, 60 or so days, sure, they might have been editing and putting together the footage as they went along, but they have to acquire the footage from the incident at the Monacan mines. And the news reports, which come out after the fact. And at the news reports which immediately follow the incident, we see that Sarah has been recorded with her mother outside of the mines. So we know that she's alive at that point.
Yes, we don't see Mia again, but this footage is... I can't understand how most of it would be used to defend her doctorate thesis. You might have believed that if it were submitted for that, the supernatural elements would have been scrubbed from it. There's also the footage of the hospital security cameras, which were added into the documentary. Somehow, they were acquired.
Who knows? Maybe she gave up on being a doctor and all. Maybe she decided to dedicate her life to some other pursuit.
I don't find that a very compelling possibility. She just spent 7 to 10 years in university and medical school, not to mention a vast amount of debt which may have been accrued. I can't see that a likely happening. I'm not sure Sower would just give up like that. I think it might be more likely if she became disillusioned with the practice or benefits of medicine following these events.
You might also assume that she did submit her doctorate thesis, but that some of this is footage that didn't make it into the defense. We don't know any of that for certain. It's all nebulous. There's no answers given to the fate of these characters.
Sheriff Linda Tweed dies. Kara has been possessed by Desjardins. Her leukemia is in remission, and Deborah Logan has entered the late stages of Alzheimer's.
Yeah, like I said, real gut punch. Bit of an unsatisfying ending after everything we just saw, and especially given that we don't have an explanation as to why any of this did not succeed. You might need to assume that the characters, at the very least, have a presumption that they do fail, as the added footage of little Kara's birthday to the documentary highlights that. There's no other reason for her footage to be in there. It's kind of a sinister highlight to a celebration of her life. Must be left up to the fates, I guess. But it's not just theirs we don't know much about. We don't know much about Sarah's father, Dennis, either. Just that he died before these events, around the time of Sarah's second birthday. So 68 maybe? It's before even those events with the doctor. But we don't know anything about him or his involvement.
For all we know, Sarah was telling the truth when she told the nurse that Harris was her father.
Oh, Dad. Yeah, I'm his daughter. I'm his daughter.
We're prepping him for surgery.
At the very least, she may seen him as a fatherly figure.
Except that was a lie she was telling, so she wouldn't be kicked out of the hospital room, and that it was explained to her father died at some point, leaving behind a wife and a child.
Deborah was forced to provide for 2-year-old Sarah on her own.
And for all I know, everything is a lie. The lack of closure is the real horror story. Yes, we managed to avoid the depressing circumstances of the slow, arduous, tedious journey following around an old woman as she descends into the slow, swallowing miasma, ripping away her conscious mind, leaving only a frail, feeble, and empty husk. That kind of degradation and degeneration.
Logan's physical condition has deteriorated rapidly, leaving her barely able to speak or communicate.
Look, unlike you, I don't hate everything. And yeah, the lack of a proper ending to the movie does put a damper on my enthusiasm, but it's not always the ending that matters. Sure, I wish it was a bit slower and a bit more methodical, but I'll say that I enjoyed it. We give it a bit more to the ending, not having it shown from the point of view of a news report. I think it will be good, real good. All I have to do is have me a finished her doctorate thesis instead of a news report. Give it from Mia's perspective, show that mental collapse of Deborah. Have the final monologue of a grieving daughter still trying to reach her mother, who sits nearly catatonic in a wheelchair, a distant look in her eyes, in it with a promise to keep fighting for the ones you love, to hold on tight to the people you love no matter what. I think that would be a good way to handle this. And if we still need to have that downer, you can still play that news report on a TV or something.
Yeah, that does sound like a better ending.
Can't imagine it break to the bike either. Would it be a stretch of resources? Wouldn't it be all that taxing the dough, unless they just didn't have the actors for whatever reason? Considering you only ever see Sarah in one short falling the caverns, that might be what happened. I don't think they're all dead. Only Linda Tweed was reported as being dead. So I assume me is still Lloyd, Garvin, Lois, Sarah, all of them. Just nothing concrete.
I didn't hate this movie, not like the last one, but I didn't like it either. I wouldn't watch this movie again. Maybe for people who like this sort of thing, people like you, there might be some value in it. So for people who are interested in found footage, I suppose give this one a watch.
That's the spirit. Say, told you that you'd warm up to it eventually. Might even get you to watch that next one without